Step into a world where shadows hide forbidden desires and a single glance can unravel everything you thought you knew. If you're drawn to stories that pulse with raw passion, guilt, and the sting of betrayal, you're in the right place. This is a tale of curiosity turned obsession of temptation too strong to resist. My best friend Sarah and I noticed it first, the women leaving our neighbor's house, their faces flushed, eyes wide like they'd seen something they'd never forget. We wondered. We had to know. So we knocked on his door. And when he opened it, he looked at us like he'd been expecting us all along. It was late, and I was halfway up the stairs to bed when something caught my eye through the front window. Across the street in a quiet Georgia suburb, his bedroom light glowed, casting shadows that stopped me cold. He wasn't alone. I froze, one hand gripping the banister. A woman stood near his window, her dress slipping off her shoulder, smooth and deliberate, like she'd done it 100 times. She leaned into him, her hand on his chest, while he stood there calm, unhurried, like time bent to his will. "Sarah." I called, my voice low, urgent. She shuffled in, a blanket draped over her shoulders, hair mussed from the couch, what-I-pointed eyes glued to the scene. "He's at it again." She sighed, hesitant, but joined me at the window. Her eyes widened as she looked. Through the glass, we saw everything, her back pressed against the wall, his hands framing her face, his lips whispering something that made her laugh, then go still. He lifted her thigh, pulling her closer, slow and sure. Sarah covered her mouth. We shouldn't be watching. But we did. Like kids sneaking a peek at something forbidden, we stood frozen, pressed against the window. His movements were deliberate, practiced, like he'd done this 1,000 times. She clung to him, head tilted back, legs trembling. When he turned her, she gripped the window frame like it was her only anchor. "Is that the same woman from last week?" Sarah whispered. "No," I said. "This one's new, 5th or 6th this month." Sarah shook her head, but her eyes stayed locked on the scene. "It's insane," she murmured. I leaned closer. "They come in all confident, flirting, laughing. They leave looking like their world's been turned upside down." The woman's mouth fell open, her eyes wild, her body reacting to whatever he was doing. He barely moved, but she held on like her life depended on it. Sarah turned away, flustered. "Okay, enough. I didn't budge. Don't tell me you're not curious." She clutched her blanket tighter, sinking onto the couch. "I mean, he's striking. In that way?" I grinned. "The man's a mystery. 52, barely says a word, never brags, yet every woman in this neighborhood leaves his place like they've stepped out of a dream." Sarah bit her lip, nervous. I leaned in. "I want to know what it's like." She laughed, uneasy. "You're not serious." "Dead serious," I said. "Tomorrow I'm going over. Say hello. Introduce myself." "What, just knock and ask for a taste?" Sarah teased. I smirked. "Maybe I'll borrow some sugar, or offer to carry something heavy. Whatever works." Sarah clutched her blanket, shaking her head. "You're out of your mind." "Admit it," I said. "You're wondering too." She didn't answer, just pulled the blanket tighter and looked away. Morning came, and I woke with him on my mind. No guilt, just curiosity burning hotter than ever. What was it about him that broke every woman who crossed his threshold? Sarah acted like last night hadn't seared itself into her brain, curled up on the couch with a bowl of cereal, still in pajamas. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. So I said, casual, "Now's as good a time as any." She didn't look up. "For what you know what?" She groaned. "Ava, you can't just knock on his door because you liked what you saw." I grabbed my keys. "It's not just what I saw. It's what I've seen over and over. Last night sealed it. Sarah pulled her blanket over her head. I'm not going. You don't have to, I said. Just back me up. Pretend we're borrowing something. Why do you need me there? She asked, peeking out. Because I said stepping closer, you'll stop me from doing something too reckless. Or push me to do something stupid. Either way, it'll be fun. She rolled her eyes but stood grabbing a hoodie. Minutes later, we crossed the street, my heart pounding not from nerves but anticipation. Sarah trailed a step behind. I knocked once. The door creaked open and there he stood, barefoot, shirt half-buttoned, hair damp from a shower. James. His eyes met ours, calm, knowing like he'd been waiting for this moment. Like he knew exactly why we were here. Hey, I said, keeping my voice light. Sorry for just showing up. We were out for a walk and thought we'd say hi. Sarah stood behind me, hoodie pulled tight like she wanted to vanish. He nodded once. Glad you stopped by. We're Ava and Sarah, I said, from across the street. I know, he said, his voice low, heavy with something unspoken. He stepped aside and we walked in. His house was warm, quiet, bathed in soft light, the faint scent of coffee lingering. Slow jazz hummed in the background like it had been playing for hours. 2 glasses sat on the counter, one full. I raised an eyebrow. Expecting someone? Not really, he said. Just thought I might have company. I glanced at Sarah. She pretended not to notice. He handed me a glass and I took it without hesitation. Sarah hovered by the door, silent, unsure. You're not what I expected, I said, sipping. He smirked. Neither are you. What did you picture? Someone who watches as closely as you do usually avoids eye contact the next day. Sarah flinched. He'd seen us. It's a window, he said, not a one-way mirror. I laughed, sharp and quick. Fair enough. He sank onto the couch, hands on his knees, relaxed. Sarah stayed rooted. You can leave any time, he said softly, glancing at her. No pressure. She didn't move, her eyes darting between us. I leaned back in the chair across from him. You get a lot of fake excuses. He met my gaze, his smile calm, confident. I leave the window open for a reason. I didn't back down. I leaned closer, one leg brushing his, my fingers resting lightly on his shoulder. He didn't flinch, his hand settling on my thigh like he'd expected it. Sarah's voice cut through. You're really doing this? I glanced at her, still by the door. You act like I dragged you here. You did, she said. Then go, I said simply. Or stay and admit you're not just here for me. She shook her head, but her eyes stayed on him. He raised an eyebrow. I make sure they don't forget me. Sarah froze, but her gaze didn't waver. I stood slow and took her hand. Her pulse raced under my fingers. You don't have to do anything, I whispered, but don't lie to yourself. I led her forward step by step until we stood before him. He looked at Sarah, steady, unreadable, then leaned in and kissed her. She gasped, trembling, but after a heartbeat, she pulled back, face flushed. I didn't hesitate. I stepped past her, kissing him hard, no pretense, no holding back. I made it clear what I wanted. His hands found my hips, steady, deliberate. When I pulled back, we didn't speak. I reached for the hem of my shirt, and he mirrored me, the fabric slipping off like we'd done this before. I moved closer, hands on him, feeling every shift in his body, the tightening of his shoulders, the grip on the couch. I wanted to feel everything he was holding back. Behind me, something shifted. He looked past me, extending a hand. Sarah stood there, clutching her shirt like a shield torn. He nodded, once silent. She stepped forward, cautious but not resisting. He kissed her again, softer this time. She didn't pull away. His hand slid to her neck, guiding her shirt off her shoulder. It fell silently, her breath catching. I kept going, letting the rhythm take over. Sarah sank to the floor beside me, hesitant until his touch on her cheek steadied her. Our hands brushed, both of us moving with the same purpose. She was slower, cautious, but bolder with each moment. When his head tilted back, I knew we were getting somewhere. "Both of you," he said, voice low, steady. We stood together. He sank deeper into the couch, arms wide. I climbed onto him, settling until I was exactly where I needed to be. His lips grazed my skin and my arms tightened around him. His movements were precise, unhurried, masterful. I tilted my head back, breathing hard. Sarah leaned in her hands, finding the rhythm I'd set, growing confident as I guided her. We moved together, his attention unwavering, each motion building on the last, sending waves through me, tightening everything inside. I lost my balance, but I didn't want him to stop. Sarah gasped as he touched her, urging her to her feet. She rose, letting him guide her into his lap. His hands gripped her waist, steadying her as she moved slow, adjusting to him. Her eyes closed, her body finding its rhythm. She leaned forward, clutching his shoulders, her movements stronger, bolder. Her body tensed, her back arching, telling us everything we needed to know. He held her a moment longer, then lifted her gently, laying her on the couch. He turned to me. I was ready, turning to face him, my breath shallow. He stepped behind me, guiding us into a rhythm with no hesitation. His hands were firm, his movements deliberate, relentless. Sarah watched, eyes half closed, still catching her breath. I smiled at her. Then the pressure shifted. I gasped, gripping the couch to steady myself. Each second pulled me deeper, his precision keeping me on the edge. When he hit the right angle, my back arched, everything surging forward, shaking me to my core. He didn't slow. He turned to Sarah, lifting her again, moving with her even more urgently. I knelt beside them, brushing sweat from her brow, kissing his shoulder, his chest. Sarah's hand found mine, gripping tight. She moved with him faster now, her body rising to meet him, her breath uneven, her reactions sharper, unstoppable. I watched her, awestruck. His focus never wavered, his stamina not just impressive, but relentless. I believed he could go forever. Finally, he exhaled against her neck. Sarah lay still, chest heaving. I curled up beside them, brushing hair from her face, my body still buzzing. I leaned close, whispering with a grin. "Still think it was a bad idea? What would you do if two curious souls showed up at your door? Be honest. Drop it in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for being here.